that. I'm hoping that the people in the overflow room are going to be jotting down their questions that they'll give to the marshal, and then we'll bring them in for the second round. So the first question has to do with the divestment portfolio that SIA launched this week, and the idea that divestment, like the BDS movement, has received both criticism and support. So the question is, what role do you think that divestment campaigns and IAW play with regard to fostering debate and dialogue on academic campuses?
I have found in my travels that there are many people who are more sympathetic to divestment campaigns than to boycott campaigns, because divestment campaigns are focused against, are focused on corporations, and there are easier arguments to be made that corporations that make specific kinds of military goods that are used for the purposes of sustaining occupation, destroying lands, or injuring or destroying populations, that one can document it, right? One can show the link. So one is literally investing in the occupation by investing in those companies. I think there is much more confusion about boycott, and that's where the charge of discrimination comes in. And but I think it's really important to link them, because culture is what we call culture. I don't know what culture is. Suspicious of people who do. But certainly public figures, cultural workers, artists, intellectuals, all have a way of providing legitimation for the state and its practices. And it is a power that we exercise by going, by showing up, by allowing ourselves to be regarded as anti-boycott, and it's a power we exercise by refusing to go and making clear publicly why we refuse to go. We withdraw the power of legitimation. And so, look, both are complementary strategies. They are really crucial. I do think that one way that divestment campaigns get derailed is when people say, oh, the state of Israel is being singled out. Well, it is true that the occupation is a singular historical problem. At the same time, we are all the time drawing analogies between that particular form of settler colonialism and the one that took place in South Africa. Otherwise we wouldn't have Israeli Apartheid Week. So one needs to be able to generalize certain kinds of principles and be prepared to show how those principles can be implemented across the board, at which point the debate shifts. You're not singling out Israel, you're insisting that Israel is no exception to the general rule.
Yes.
I do think that that when something like Israeli Apartheid Week gets understood as a discriminatory discourse, or even as hate speech, the name of the week is somehow hate speech, it really presumes that to be opposed to some aspect of Israeli state power and its effects on Palestinians is to be anti-Semitic, or it presumes that Israel should not be compared to apartheid under South Africa or other forms of apartheid. I think one really needs to get one's historical arguments together to show that what is happening in Palestine is part of a tradition of settler colonialism. It's complicated form of subjugation. It has some aspects that are not like South Africa. It has others that are very much like it. But apartheid also, as a category, has a history, right? Forms of apartheid have changed depending on where they are located geographically and geopolitically. So it does not mean that you have to draw an absolutely flawless analogy between the one and the other. But it does mean that this is an historical context and an historically evolving category that is pertinent to this occupation.
I'm going to share a very briefly a personal experience, and Judith, you're allowed to comment if you feel to. I'm one of millions of exiled Palestinians who've never been to Palestine. I did my secondary education in Damascus, in Syria. The vice principal of my school was a Palestinian. I never talked to my principal as a Palestinian. We Palestinians faced a reality of fragmentation due to decolonization. The reason I bring this figure of authority from my past, so I've been thought about in 15 years, is today I woke up to a dream in which I was sitting on a table, you came to the table, we chatted, and then you told me, I want to bring someone and I want you to talk with this person. And you brought this vice principal of mine from the past, and for the first time, I talked to him as a Palestinian and we talked about music. So I want to thank you so much for that.